very helpful. And then if you haven't done so already, please sign up for the raffle. We'll be giving away 4 gift certificates to the Southside Bistro during the show today. And feel free to put your name on there if you just want the be in for the raffle. But if you'd like to receive updates as far as future events and who's going to be featured, please put your email on there so that way we can contact you on that. And so we also have coffee and tea in the back. And if you have any questions, feel free to let one of us know. We're more than happy to answer any questions. And I'm going to let Travis take it away.
Thanks. Thank you. So feel free to chat me up at any time through this. I don't have a lot to talk about, and I'm really better at answering questions, I think, than creating conversation. So if you have any questions, please help me out. So I'm making soup today. I think you guys all have little copies of the recipe. As with most soups, I think you don't necessarily have to follow a recipe exactly per se. It's just kind of get it the way you like it. So if you're vegetarian, or if you can't have garlic, if you can't have onions, things like that, it's pretty easy to modify things and work around it. So this recipe, there's not a lot of ingredients in it, and that's kind of the beauty of it, is it doesn't take a lot of food to make something, or it doesn't take a lot of components to make something taste good, especially when you have good quality. I'm going to start with getting my pot hot, if I can. So starting with the onion. I tell myself, because Jens, the owner at our Southside Bistro at the restaurant, has done one of these before years and years ago. He was telling me last night that whatever you do, just don't cut yourself. Because he did. So I'm going to make sure I don't follow in his footsteps on that one.
How long did it take you to do it?
A couple of cuts. Yeah, I've any cook who's worked long enough in the kitchen, I think, they've gotten themselves once or twice before. So I've learned to stop. Like I used to try and show off and look away, and sit there and twirl my knife around. No, there's no point in that anymore. So yeah, you can see there's only a couple of ingredients in here. It says vegetable stock in there. I brought chicken stock with me because that's what we had on hand at the restaurant. Kind of a trick with this. I don't know if can you see with the mirror here? So for the soup, I'm going to use this. I'm just going to get rid of the really tough base. Get rid of that. Are we there yet? All right. So onions go in. First thing you hear is a little bit of a sizzle. That's always a good plan when you're cooking. Start in a warm pan or a hot pan. Don't start in a cold pan. It takes things a lot less time. My lucky spoon. So oil or butter, hot pan, onions, salt. Let that sweat out for a minute. Get back to this here in a second. The cauliflower.
Are you using oil or butter today?
I'm using oil.
Is olive oil?
Yeah, just not extra virgin, just normal. What we call it's pomace oil. It's like a second pressed oil. It's good for cooking. Slightly neutral flavor, but not like vegetable oil, canola oil, or peanut oil. This guy right here. Yeah. It's relatively new to our kitchen. That's why I brought it with, because it's shiny and pretty. But most of our pots start out like this, and then, yeah. They're aluminum, actually, is what it is. So, if you've got one of these guys, enamel cast iron at home, that's why I love it. That's what I cook with at home. So I'm not really focusing on the cuts here on this, because it's going to get pureed. So it doesn't have to be beautiful. But even is important. Make sure I don't. Trying to avoid getting any kind of color on there. Wouldn't ruin the soup. It wouldn't ruin anything really. It might just make it a little bit sweeter, but. If you have Vidalias, they're usually kind of seasonal. And right now, I think the only sweet onion available is a Walla Walla, maybe. But that would work too. Just the difference between them once they get cooked out, I don't think is big enough to note. If you're doing, like I was saying earlier, a raw or a pickled preparation, sweet onions work great. But for something that's basically setting a foundation for a soup, just a regular yellow onion is fine. Alright, so I got a big mess of cauliflower here. And a little, I'm not going to use all of this, I'm just going to use a little bit. There we go. A little bit of garlic goes in. And I started the onions before the garlic. A lot of recipes will say sweat your onions and garlic together. Garlic has a tendency to burn before onions do. So I always let that sit for a second. Turn this down. I'm not used to the firepower this guy's have. So I'll start onions first and add garlic second or third, just because it doesn't need as much time to sweat. Otherwise it'll burn, and burnt garlic tastes terrible. So into the pot. Pardon me. I have to come up with some story time here pretty soon, because I think I'm almost done. What are some of the other dishes that some of the other chefs have made? I haven't been here before, so I'm kind of curious. Some of you guys sound like you're have been to been to a few. Lamb? That sounds good. Oh. He's an amazing pastry chef. It makes it look easy too, doesn't he? Yeah.
One year he did Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, really?
He did Girl Scout cookies, all different kinds of Girl Scout cookies, and made different things out of them. That was interesting. How much sauce do you put in there?
A lot.
A lot.
People always ask me about specific things at the restaurant. They're like, how come your version tastes so much better? So you put a lot of fat and a lot of salt in everything. This is kosher. Yeah. But at home I cook with sea salt at home, but in the restaurant we cook with kosher.
Now it says cook until cauliflower is completely tender.
Well, I'm gonna add the liquid to this and then just let it go basically. I'm just making sure that I get all the vegetables kind of, that's hot. So this is chicken stock. The recipe does say vegetable stock, but like I said, this is what I had on hand, so. So now we're going to crank the heat all the way back up. I didn't want to burn the onions while I was sauteing them, but I do want to get this thing cooking. So the lid will also help. So I started that off with a little bit of oil, onion, garlic, cauliflower. Then goes the stock, and we're going to try and steam that up. I started with a little bit of salt, but the seasoning is going to be something that kind of goes throughout the process of cooking. So the salt breaks down the onions a little bit, helps them sweat. Added a little bit to the cauliflower. The stock is unseasoned. If you're using canned broth or like the Swanson's aseptic packages, go for the low sodium ones because you can control how much salt you want to add to it. Like I said, I use a lot of salt. That doesn't mean you have to. You know, I have that kind of palate where I want things to be almost borderline too much. So that's. Well, I always like to think of when I season food, salt is definitely like the most important, but then pepper is more of a flavor for me. Like we're using white pepper to season this one, so that doesn't really contribute to how it's going to affect your palate when you're tasting it, I think. But acid or like lemon juice is the other one. Those are things, salt, sugar, fat, acid, those are how you kind of manipulate the flavor of something. So if you taste something and it tastes flat, I mean, like, you know, there's tastes like there's nothing going on there. A little bit of lemon juice will fix a lot of things. If you're not a fan of black pepper, cayenne pepper, in small amounts, or a little bit of Tabasco, and Tabasco is great, or a hot sauce in general. If you have, everyone's got their preferred hot sauce, I think, but it's vinegar and chili, so it doesn't have to be spicy necessarily, but it'll change the flavor just enough, so it doesn't this could be a very boring soup on its own. Realistically, if you don't season it correctly, there won't be enough. It'll taste like boiled cauliflower and some cheese, basically. But the secret, and almost with any soup really, is fixing that flavor up with a little seasoning and just the right amount, without killing it, I hope.
What about saffron? I mean, not in this dish, but is that...
I love saffron. Yeah, we cook with a lot of it at the restaurant. Our mussels. I shouldn't say we cook with a lot of it because it's expensive, so we don't want to cook with too much of it. But it's a lot of fun to cook with. It's more versatile than I think people give credit for. But yeah, on this dish, it might actually. I mean, if you want to make something pretty, because the main reason most people use saffron, I think, is for the color, almost more so than it does. Yeah, I mean, it's got kind of, some people actually don't like it because it's got like a cleaning solvent sort of flavor to it, or smell to it, I think. But and yeah, there's that too. I'm checking on it. So I think now might be a good time for us to raffle off one of the gift cards, since I'm just waiting on soup to boil, and if we spend any time looking at this, it's just never going to happen. So.
Can you speak to the difference between white pepper and black pepper?
Absolutely. They're exactly the same, botanically speaking. They're just harvested at different points in their maturity, and then black pepper is dried and cured. So this is more or less like an immature peppercorn or seed. The flavor differences are really pronounced. Like this one's kind of, and I use this word a lot in the restaurant, it's got a funk to it, but in a good way. Like especially when we talk about wines in our restaurant, certain wines, they're kind of funky, but it's the kind of thing that it might not be easily recognizable. You say, well, what's going on there? That's kind of my catch-all term, is it's kind of funky, but I like it. There's something going on there, and white pepper is like that. I'm choosing to use this because I wanted to keep the soup completely white, and that's why most chefs have a difference. Like if they're seasoning fish, they're going to use white pepper over black pepper because they don't want little black flakes on their halibut or on their cod. This is a white soup, so I don't want little flakes. If the only thing in there, it's going to be little flecks of black. They're going to say, oh, why? What? Yeah. Exactly. You scorched it and scraped it up.
But the white is milder in taste than the black pepper.
Yeah, I think so. It makes me sneeze a lot more.
Yeah, it's not on the ground.
Yeah. Just I don't know why. Yeah. Green peppercorns, black peppercorns, and white peppercorns are all actually the same. What do we got here?
Okay.
Is that the winner?
Yep.
All right. Vera? Vera Cruz? All right. We got a winner. You want that one back? Oops.
Thank you.
Oh.
Is it peppered?
Is it peppered? No. We are open for lunch and dinner 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday.
What makes you eat that salad? Is that because it's wet salad?
I don't know which salad that was. That's the funny part. But if I were to guess, I would say our butterleaf salad. The butterleaf salad with grapes, candy pecans, champagne vinaigrette, blue cheese. I have to remember because we have gorgonzola and Danish blue at our restaurant, and they get used quite a bit. So. Sure. Yeah. I thought about doing our house soup is the roasted garlic and sun-dried tomato soup, and I thought about doing that one here, but I felt like that might have been a propriety secret for Jens's because that's not my recipe. That's been at the restaurant for almost 20 years now. This one, however, is my recipe, so I wouldn't feel bad doing that. No, the champagne vinaigrette's the beauty of a vinaigrette is a lot like a soup. Basically, you just change out a couple of different ingredients here and there, and the format's always going to be the same. So it's champagne vinegar, the same olive oil that we use for cooking, Palmas olive oil, a little bit of shallot, salt, pepper, egg yolk to emulsify, and a pinch of sugar for seasoning, and that's it. Most of our vinaigrettes, when we make all of them in-house, are that format, we just substitute out a vinegar or add a little Dijon mustard or a little bit of chopped herbs to it. But they're basically all of the same format. And the same thing works at home. If you have red wine vinegar in the pantry at home, whisk that together with some, it's going to taste different than ours unless you use the same brands. Like the olive oil that we use is what gives a lot of our, vinaigrettes their signature flavor, because it's not, if you go to other restaurants in town, they might make the exact same things, almost the exact same way realistically, and it'll taste a little bit different because they're using different brands of vinegar or different brands of olive oil. And it took me a while to realize that, like, almost everything that we use has a signature flavor to it. Or everything that we cook, rather, has a signature flavor to it.
So what brand of olive oil do you use?
Napoleon.
And so what's the ratio of oil to vinegar?
In almost all vinaigrettes, it's about 3 to 1. So 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar or lemon juice. Lately, I've been doing a lot more. We have a new cook, newish cook this summer, who came to us from another restaurant in Seattle that they use a lot of lemon in a lot of things, in a lot of places you wouldn't recognize maybe. So lately we've been doing a lot more, like, instead of a vinaigrette, it's a citronette, which is basically the exact same thing, just using orange juice, lime juice, lemon juice, grapefruit juice instead of vinegar. And as long as it's really, squeezing a lemon is different whether you squeeze it within 5 minutes of using it or, the day before. So we always use real lemon, not real lemon, but if you know what I mean.
You're looking to affect the pH of your acidity versus the
Yeah, pretty much.
alkalinity.
There's not too many alkaline foods, I think, that people really like. I guess dairy being the only one that I can think of off the top of my head. But it's more about, like, with lemon juice at least, the acidity is kind of what gets you salivating. Salt and acidity are what make you salivate, and that's kind of what wakes your taste buds up and makes you taste things more. Salt isn't necessarily a flavor on its own. What it does is it allows you to taste the flavors more of what you're eating. That's why cooks like to use a lot of salt, because it makes you taste things more. So salt and acidity kind of helps. It's like a crutch. It helps your taste buds out. So I'm just standing here waiting on soup to boil, which it's working. I suppose the next best thing that I could have done was let this cut the cauliflower down a little bit more. What I probably would have done at our restaurant is actually put it in a food processor and grated it down. Basically, you can just take whole heads of cauliflower and just, if you've got a food processor with that kind of blending wheel attachment on it, like a Cuisinart, I guess, just instead of chopping, just put it through that. If the end product's just going to be puree, then this thing is just killing it. I need one of these in my house. I am not from Alaska. I've been up here almost 10 years. Came up from Minneapolis. Been at Southside Bistro for almost that full 10 years, about 9 years now. Started off as the lunch sandwich guy, prep cook, making the vinaigrettes, helping out in dessert world. And after about 2 years working there, I got promoted up to chef. So I've been the chef there for about 8 years now. Yeah, Jesus, it's been forever. It's a long. That's forever in kitchen speak. Most people last about a year and move on. But
What made you pick cooking?
funny you mention. It's not my first career. My first job, I was military active duty, Air Force Explosive Ordnance Disposal, or Bomb Squad. And I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but I got out in 2002, GI Bill. Thought, you know what, I really want to do something with my hands, stay on my feet. I just don't see myself being the kind of person that could spend much time behind a desk. So I like I wouldn't say creative aspect of it necessarily, it's like the craftsmanship aspect of it. I could have gone into woodworking just as well, I think. The idea of, working with my hands and making things, making product. And then, who doesn't like cooking? Who doesn't like eating? So it seemed like a natural fit. Everybody needs to eat, and there's a restaurant in every city in the country, so I can find places to work basically based on that format, I guess. So yeah, after blowing things up for a few years, it seemed like it was time for a bit of a break from that. And culinary school in Minneapolis, Le Cordon Bleu. Worked in a few restaurants down there. I had a lot of fun doing that, and then moved up here. Like most of those transplants that come up to Alaska, I think there's probably a couple in the crowd that just do it for fun. Yeah. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Am I the? I think you did. What brought you to Alaska? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and I looked, when they said go to Alaska, and I looked at the book about Alaska, and it talked about the earthquake, you know. And that was in 73.
Well, you got me beat by a few, but yeah. And you, yeah. Where are you from originally?
I'm Deutschland.
I was gonna guess that, but
Is it your wife that works at the restaurant too?
yes, yeah. Amanda, she's the general manager there. She started off as a hostess actually, and then bartender for years. And she did the same thing I did, just from the front of house aspect of it. She runs our wine program, and
You met her at the restaurant?
yeah, yeah. We met at the restaurant. As I was chopping lettuce, and she was putting away bottles of wine.
Are there any bottles of wine that you could recommend?
Oh, sure, absolutely. That's my other favorite thing in the world is drinking. I love wine, so. Oh, with this soup, I can tell you exactly Whitehaven Sauvignon Blanc, Marlborough, New Zealand. It is amazing. Whitehaven Sauvignon Blanc. It's a New Zealand wine. Man, this thing is just awesome.
I know that you only want to drink white wine with this white.
Right.
But what about if it was like if you wanted to like bastardize it and say that you wanted to drink a red wine with this white soup?
I'd pick a lighter flavor, a lighter body, a Pinot Noir. That would be my instant reaction. Or, you know, if you're into it and you want to, you know, no guts, no glory, go for like a big Cabernet Franc or something like that. But realistically, and we did this as a special dinner once, and we did the wine pairings and everything went with it. And somehow we have good luck with pairing soups and wines together, which is the one that if you're going to have a 5 to 7 course meal and wine with all of them, usually people want to skip that soup course wine because it's just, otherwise you're going to be on your, you know, on your face by the end of the meal. So they're like, well, if I have to cut one out, I'm going to cut the soup wine up. That was the most amazing pairing I think we've ever come up with. Was this one with Whitehaven Sauvignon Blanc, and I don't know why it was, and everybody came up to the kitchen. They're like, that soup, that wine, those two, I don't know what you did there, but I was like, we got lucky. Because we had an original pairing all figured out, and I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And we went back to the bar, and I had a bunch of soup, and I grabbed a bunch of glasses and started working. And that one hit, and I was like, oh, done, you know, this works.
What cab Franc would you suggest?
Alexander Valley Vineyards.
I have a question on the goat cheese.
All right,
What goat cheese
Costco.
do you suggest?
If you have a friend that has a goat and you're creative and you know want to do it, by all means. Last year somebody hooked me up with some raw goat's milk. I had a couple of growlers in my, you know, just basically beer pitchers in my fridge of goat's milk, and I loved it. But it's kind of something that you got to know. You can't, well, one, you can't sell or distribute raw, raw dairy, raw goat's milk. But if you got a friend or if you got a goat yourself, obviously I don't need to tell you.
Now that's
Oh, exactly. Well, you need 2 goats, so that, yeah, one.
that's different than feta.
Yes, feta is a sheep's milk cheese traditionally, but it's acceptable to be made with cow's milk or a blend of cow's milk and sheep's milk. And it's not a creamy texture. It's a crumbly, brine, dry, which is great, but just maybe not pureed into a soup. This one, it's about, goat cheese has a distinctive flavor. It's kind of grassy, and that works really well with this soup. So that's what we chose. A lot of people also use, you know, cheddar is the go-to, or Parmesan. You know, those are go-tos. But as far as like, if you want a really smooth and velvety, creamy texture, you know, this is where to go. I think I am getting close enough on this. I'm just gonna make it happen here.
The lemon, you said that there was a difference between doing it a day before and the day of using for the.
Yeah, the freshness of it, it makes a difference. Like,
Freshness of the lemon.
yeah,
Okay,
like
I thought you- okay.
the freshness, literally, like I cut this lemon open, and if you smell it right now, and then you let it sit for a day and you do it again, it's not gonna be the same. So having, you know, lemon juice, even if it's real lemon juice from a jug, it's not the same. And they're actually seasonally different as well. Citrus is a winter fruit, so it is much better December to February. It peaks out in February. So you'll notice, like, especially with limes, I'm adding the heavy cream now. The other secrets. The other secret is a lot of heavy cream. So yeah, especially with like limes, you'll notice they're oily. They're really oily in winter, which is good. So in goes the dairy. Just
That grassy flavor is why your New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc goes with that.
yeah, specifically, actually just about any New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc will work well, but California Sauvignon Blancs are also, they're not so citrusy, they're more grassy. So, you know, some of those work, but they end up being a little bit more on the pricier side. So, New Zealand is,
For us to taste.
I didn't know my crowd, or otherwise I would have. I got shot glasses here, so.
So what else would go good with this soup, like a nice sandwich or a chicken plate or whatever?
I am a fan of sandwiches and soup, so I think you're onto something with that. We have one at the lunchtime at the restaurant. It's kind of an adult grilled cheese, brie, grilled vegetables, sun-dried tomatoes, kind of pressed. I just had that one for lunch the other day, and I think that one would work. I think we're about ready to.
And it melted pretty fast. That chip.
Yeah, it just basically disappears. Well, really, you'll see it's going to get noisy in here in a minute, but once it goes into this guy, it's all going to disappear. Yeah, the Vitamix. And when it comes to equipment, I would like to say that for the most part, it's not about the equipment that you're using. It can make a little bit of difference here and there, but that thing is the savior of our restaurant when it comes to at least texture of things. If you want a soup that's smooth, a blender will do the job, but that one will do it better. And I haven't found anything else that's close. Like a stick blender, we've got a stick blender at our restaurant that's this big that I will stick into a pot and just set it there, turn it on, walk away, and come back 20 minutes later, make god-awful noise. Come back 20 minutes later, and it'll be smooth, but that thing has some sort of voodoo behind it that I don't know how it works. It just, I had a ladle around here somewhere. Ah. There we go. All right, let's see if I can stretch this thing out and not unplug. Are you gonna make it? Yeah, I see. So I'm gonna have to apologize to the audio guy here in a minute with the blender, but it's for the good of the soup, I promise. So after everything's soft, which seemed like an interminable amount of time today, goes in the pot. And a word of warning at home, when you're blending hot ingredients, some of you may have learned this lesson by spackling your ceiling. Be careful. The other reason I do like this guy is it's got kind of a safety feature in the top where it won't blow up. Make sure I'm not on, it's got a high speed setting. It's not as loud as I thought it would be. It's louder in our kitchen. It's just, yeah, it is. All right, so I guess I'll use the mirror. Can you guys see how white that is? That's what we're shooting for. Actually, I'm gonna season it while we're in here. So a little fresh lemon, and it's actually all just gonna go into the big pot together. A little white pepper.
Now, why did you put the juice, run it off the hand?
Seeds. I've eaten lemon seeds before. They're not the end of the world. It's not going to break your tooth like an olive pit will, but it's just there's no need. This blender will take care of that. And this is fresh nutmeg, the other thing that I want to advocate using fresh. So,
How much would you say that translates to? A quarter of a teaspoon or?
go when you're using nutmeg, start off really light, like a pinch, an eighth of a teaspoon or less. taste it, because if you can tell right away with nutmeg what's too much. Oop, 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 oop.
How do you say the name of that cheese that you're using?
Chev.
Yes,
I don't have that ability that, I mean, I'm sure if somebody spoke native French, chèvre, you got to roll the R at the end. We've got a couple of Mexican cooks that laugh at me daily when I try and pronounce things with a rolled R, so I'll just, come close enough and call it good. So, yeah. Yeah. I know it's not chèvre. That's closer than, all right. No, they do? No, just Chev? Yeah. I'm sure there's somebody in this room that probably speaks better French than I do. I know a couple of kitchen words and a little more Spanish than French maybe, but. All right, just to use up the last of it, a little more salt, a little more pepper, a little more. And the seasoning part is where it goes from being good to great, I think. And a little bit more nutmeg. Oh, I haven't had a problem with it ever going stale, especially when they're whole. They seem to go for ever. I don't know about that. We don't necessarily have a problem with that at the restaurant, at least at my house. I'd imagine I probably have some that are as old as my house.
Restaurant, do you offer vegetarian entree?
We have options available, absolutely. We've got gluten-free options available. What else? And then I'll say this carefully because I've gotten in trouble before. If you call ahead at our restaurant and make a request, let's say vegan or gluten-free or specific allergy, if I get a little bit of notice, like a day, 24-hour notice, I love making new stuff up or just kind of winging things. So on occasion, if somebody says, we've got 3 or 4 people that are coming in that are vegan, is there something that's off menu you can make?
So we don't use any peanut oil for...
No, we don't use peanut oil in our restaurant. No. We don't actually have any peanuts in our restaurant anywhere, unless our pastry chef does something with some peanut butter. Other than that, no, we do pretty well with catering to gluten-free or some of the trickier ones, I'll admit, are hard to get around, like people who have multiple conflicting allergies or food sensitivities. It's always a little bit of a challenge, but I am going to do the next most important thing of the day is before you serve this to your guests, it's always important. Hot. Because inevitably, you're going to need to tweak it. Oh, yeah. You could say that. I'm going to go with a little more, not much. That's also a big pot of soup, remember. So there's enough soup for a lot of people here.
Is there a non-dairy substitute for the heavy cream?
Butter. Well, coconut milk would be pretty flavorful. It would change the component quite a bit. You could actually just omit it. Because the cauliflower itself gets so creamy when you puree it, that it would be easy enough to make this a vegan soup. You could add a little bit of potato to it. You'd be kind of swapping out starch or carbohydrate for fat, which would definitely change it. And since there's
non-fat half and half, but I don't
well,
know what that sounds like a oxymoron.
well, you start getting into like food starches and modifiers, and basically what that does is it'll mimic the texture of fat without giving you the flavor of it. So like fat-free sour cream, for example, and I've got really nothing against modifiers of food starches or hydrocolloids, thickeners and gels and agents like that. But it gets a little bit weird on how you digest it, I think. So for me at least, I'd rather have a little bit less soup with all the fat in it than, what's the other one here? The guar gum, locust bean gum, gum arabic, things like that. Agar. There's a lot of different cornstarch. It would be a simple one. But if you look at the labels on food products or packaged food, convenience food, there's things in there that will make you think you're eating fat, but you're not eating fat. So you want to eat more of it, as opposed to this should leave you satisfied after a cup or a bowl. So I would rather advocate putting some butter in there and putting some heavy cream in there and just not eating as much of it. Your body will do better handling it, I guess.
With your,
I've read like some of these 5-star restaurants use Campbell's mushroom soup for part. They use that and they base it on.
Everything we do at our restaurants scratch except for two things. We don't make our own mayonnaise, and we don't make our own vanilla ice cream. We do make all of our other ice creams in-house. Oh, and that's pure on volume because we don't have a big ice cream maker, and we'd burn out ice cream makers left and right. So everything else we do is purely from scratch, 100%. Well, we don't bake our own bread. We buy a bread product, but and that's just the way I want to cook. Other chefs in town have their prerogative. They can cook how they like. As long as the food tastes good, I'm happy for it, but I enjoy the actual process. So.
on the stock, the vegetable stock or the chicken stock, are you using a packaged stock or raw?
We make it we make it in house at the restaurant, chicken stock and veg stock. We also do veal stock and duck stock because we buy whole ducks. But at my house, unless I'm really feeling ambitious, I buy the Swanson's aseptic package. Yeah, chicken stock, not broth, which it works just as well. So I am ready to serve you guys some soup if you guys want to try some. Should we do another raffle first? It works for me. All right. I guess I've already answered most of the questions. Are there any other questions I might be able to help you with?
How about using leaves instead of the yellow onion?
Beautiful. That would be a fantastic option. There's a classic French soup called vichyssoise that, this might take me forever. I should have started this sooner, I guess. Oh, you guys are... Yeah. Who said that?
That's a good idea.
Man.
All right, so it looks like winner number 2 is Carol Haugen.
Carol, remember the ruling? What's the ruling?
Not here. Don't respond, you don't get it.
Okay, we need to pull another one. One more time.
Watch your step.
Carol's not here.
What was the last name, Alicia?
Harris.
That's what we always double check in case
He's here.
kind of spaces out on.
He's here.
No.
We got a very aggressive
Makes it
crowd.
easier.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't quite sure what we were
No,
walking into, so.
no, that's a smart way to go.
And I had these shot glasses kicking around, so.
Yeah, and we do have portion cups to be there.
I saw that. Oh, yeah, okay. No, I got plenty.
Prepared too, just in case.
Well, it's good.
Should I pull it? Pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, for this setup.
Oh, it will, absolutely. Oh, somebody got lucky there. Certainly. There's an easier way than most, the old French guys will tell you, how you've got to stand over it and skim it and spend forever on it. What we do at the restaurant is just throw some butter in a pot. And butter is comprised of 3 things. Naturally, it's butterfat, milk solids, and water. Clarifying butter, you're removing the water and the milk solids from it. So all you're doing is deconstructing it, basically. There's usually salt added to some butters as well, but so if you just boil butter, just melt it and boil it. That's all you got to do. Just don't burn it, because if you burn it, you make brown butter, which is equally delicious in its own right, but a different subject. So basically, just boiling it away, and then just pour it off. Usually, the solids will sink to the bottom. It'll kind of looks like wet sand, and you only really notice that when you're doing volume, like a pound of butter, which most people don't. I can see. Nobody needs to, clarify a pound of butter unless you're making hollandaise. Ghee is basically just browned butter. If you boil out the water and then let the milk solids toast and brown at the bottom and then drain it off, that's ghee. Which there's been times where, like, if we're making a hollandaise at the restaurant and I walk away for a little bit and end up kind of browning the butter a little bit, still make the hollandaise off of it, it's still delicious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to remove the solids then from the?
Just leave them in the bottom of the pot.
Leave it, just
Yeah.
skim them.
Yeah.
Do you just have one of those spout pots that you can just pour it?
No, but when we do, it's easier when you do things in certain scaled up volumes. So, like, if I'm doing 2 pounds of butter, I'll just pour it off and it's easy, because there's really, so it's the short and simple way. The other way, and I've done this in another restaurant where we serve drawn butter with crab, is we would take a 55-pound block of butter, put it in the pot, turn the pot on, and let it just melt, but not actually cook away any water. Then you just kind of ladle the oil off the top, or the butter fat off the top.
So you make an effort to use it locally?
Absolutely. We did this soup 3 times this summer, all with Alaskan cauliflower. When it comes to produce, it's really easy to get local produce in the summertime up here. And we've been doing a lot, like I was saying earlier. I just came from the farmer's market before I came here to pick up our kale. It was the last one of this summer. For that, there's one at the Sears Mall that is year-round. Whoop, another one.
So Travis, do you guys have any holiday specials that you guys going to be presenting Thanksgiving, Christmas? Or
Our owner's a family man. He loves his Thanksgiving off, so we closed down, and I'm going to be probably in Hawaii for that. So not Thanksgiving at least, but the last Sunday of September, which sadly you guys all missed out on, unless somebody went. Anybody go to our fall harvest dinner? It's all local produce thing that we do every year. So maybe mark your calendars for next year. It's always the end of September. It's always a good time. New Year's Eve is always a big event for every restaurant in town. I'd like to say ours is better. So we do a special event on New Year's Eve. We do a special event on Valentine's Day. Don't do anything for Mother's Day, just because it's rough. Whoa! I'll save that for me. Oh, it just looks horrendous, doesn't it? There we go. Easy fix. Just get that out of the way. How many more do we need? Keep going? Lord knows I have enough soup.
I would probably do at least 20 more.
Beautiful. I got plenty.
A little bit for people who helped out.
Yeah. Oh, no worries. Well, the one that I made today, the one you guys watched me actually cook, gave me about a half a gallon, a little more than a half gallon, I guess. I suppose that depends on the size of the cauliflower head that you're cooking with. Some of those Alaskan ones can, feel like you get a gallon off of it, but. And again, like especially with something like a soup, I would say maybe I got lucky on the texture on this one. It came out just right, but depending on how long you cook it, you don't have to follow a recipe exactly. And I am a strong advocate for people to take a look at it and be like, all right, what's the point behind it? What's he trying to do? And then change things up. quantities, you know, if it says a cup of cream, but you don't want to put a cup of cream in your soup because you're like, oh, that's too much cream, put half of it in there, you know. It's still going to taste like soup at the end of the day, so.
What are you talking about, the alternate milks instead of the cream? Of course, you want to use the cream and stuff.
Using like, well, you know what? If you've got access to goat's milk, absolutely, that would be smart in this one.
If that serves 8 though, you're only getting 1/8 of a cup of cream
Yeah,
per serving. That's hardly anything.
yeah. At our fall harvest dinner, and for some reason I think maybe it's going to become apparent, I am a fan of goat's milk, more so than I think cow's milk. I don't know why, but I love it. We made goat's milk ice cream, which was out of this world good. So we had a lot of extra goat's milk kicking around in the restaurant, and had I thought of it, I would have brought some of that and used it in this, because that would be a perfect spot. And it's also something that's easier to digest for people with lactose issues. For some reason, goat's milk's got a lower percentage of lactose in it, I believe. So it's not as... Probably not. No, I don't think there would be. And if there would be, then just on the defrost, basically, just throw it back in the blender. We have a very small freezer at our restaurant, so I shy away from doing large batches of anything if I can.
I think we're good.
Fantastic, then.
Sea salt, kosher salt, iodized salt?
Not iodized salt. It would work just as well with either sea salt or kosher salt. I don't like the way iodized salt feels, pinching. And cooks are very tactile with salt, at least. I like to use kosher salt because the consistency, sorry, I'm stepping around here. The consistency and how it feels when I'm pinching it is always the same. So I know, like I've actually done this and measured what that is. So I know what 2-finger pinch, 3-finger pinch, so on and so forth. Sea salt, fine sea salt is a lot like iodized salt in that sense where it feels funny. So I don't like to cook with it because I don't know how much I'm using. What else? The larger flake salts, some of the fancy salts, I love using those, but not for an application like this. Exactly. Hawaiian salt or Malden sea salt, those ones that have like funny flakes or they're different textures. Those are great on like a steak, basically, when you want to actually crunch into a piece of salt. So, but yeah, the workhorse salt in the restaurant is kosher, and that's kind of the same for most places, I think.
I think that's excellent.
Thank you. Oh, you got it. There's no shortage of it. If anybody wants seconds, I got more. Yeah, make sure you try it. Did you try it?
No.
Come on.
That's why I figured we'd do a little bit more.
Yeah.
I've never been to your restaurant, but my mom goes there every year as a company.
Oh, good.
Yeah, my brother-in-law used to work there like 10 years ago. His name was James Straw.
James. Don't know.
He's like, who's the chef? I was like, well, I don't think you recognize the person's name. It's like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, he worked over there.
Yeah, I've been there for a while now, so.
I think he was a waiter.
I still have to go over there. So you said New Year's they have a really cool holiday?
New Year's we do, yeah, I mean, most restaurants in town will do something special for New Year's, but we are definitely one of those. New Year's and Valentine's Day are special events, but we like to stay busy year round, so you can come in tonight. It'd be great. Sure, why not?
We just put a bunch on the table for food. So
That'll work, yeah, absolutely. No, We try hard every day to make the food taste good, not just on special events. So any day of the week. We have a lot of fun on the weekdays, actually. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's where I get to express the creativity a little bit more, I think, because people seem to be a bit more interested in trying crazy things on the weekdays.
Yeah.
We get that a lot. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we're out of the way. Not a lot of people come down to our restaurant because it's. Okay. Yeah, parking is our one issue.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Tell me about it.
Where are you located?
Right across the street from the Huffman Cars. There's a little strip mall, like all the great restaurants in Anchorage. We're in a strip mall. Yep. Not every day, but we always have two soups. One changes daily, and the other one is sun-dried tomato and roasted garlic.
Is the sun-dried tomato roasted garlic, is that vegetarian?
Yep. There's a little cream in there, but other than that, it's vegetarian. There's only 5, well, counting water, salt, and pepper, there's only 5 ingredients, 8 total with those 3. And I almost did that one today, but I think that's going to be Jens's secret.
It's very good.
I'm getting hungry, too. I haven't had breakfast yet, so my coffee is worn off, and it's time to feed. Any other questions? Did I make that last long enough, or should I ramble on some more?
If you're vegan and you go to your restaurant, what would you prefer?
There's a couple of things available that we can modify on the menu. That's kind of the standard answer. They don't necessarily excite me, though. I feel like the vegan gets a short shift at our restaurant, in every restaurant, in reality, unless it's specific. So what I like to do in those situations, if somebody makes a reservation, put a note on the reservation saying we'll have a vegan with us, or can the chef do something different? If I have advance notice, I would love to create something different or something a little bit more interesting or fun. That's not literally just a veg platter, because people get an angel hair pasta without cheese on it. Like, it doesn't really taste very good. So yeah.
The standard vegetarian is pasta primavera.
Yeah. And yeah.
Like, if they say, oh, we have pasta primavera, I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. That's basically what we do too. But well, for vegans at least is what it is. For vegetarian, there's soups and salads, our pizzas. We have the greatest nachos in the state. I'll say that, in front of any chef in town. We have the best nachos ever out of our wood oven. So
you got one, then I got one.
All right. Hannah.
One more time.
All right.
All right. And Marbeth, am I saying that right? You picked your own name, didn't you?
I did. I think the other person did. They're really funny.
Whoa.
Thanks for coming, folks. We're going to do this again on the 26th. And we'll, make sure you have your emails on there. And just keep your eye out for notifications. And in the paper, check the SBS website or the Bon Appetit Facebook page. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.